There is really no room for debate on this point. Kennedy had a huge exit wound in the back of his head because the shot that killed him came from the front and could not have been fired by Oswald, who was behind the president. This information did not start off as a secret. It was made into a secret by constant authoritative denial of the truth. The lying continues today.
Good evening, I'm Peter Jennings. 40 years after the assassination, the latest ABC News poll tells us that more than 2/3 of Americans still believe there was a conspiracy to kill the president.
40 years later, Jennings thought he was the man to fix this problem, that 2/3 of the American people believe the conspiracy theories that say the government is lying.
What we will do tonight is demonstrate that those theories are wrong.
Of course, he will have to lie to do that. This is Malcolm Kilduff, Kennedy's assistant press secretary. He is speaking at a press conference at the Dallas hospital where the president has just been pronounced dead. Please notice the ABC logo. This is from Jennings' video.
He died of a gunshot wound in the brain.
And they fade the scene out. No more press conference. But now watch this. The same guy, the same press conference, no ABC logo.
Died at approximately 1 o'clock Central Standard Time today here in Dallas. He died of a gunshot wound in the brain. Dr. Berkeley told me it's a simple matter, Tom, of a bullet right through the head.
The press secretary tried to show us how the head wound was inflicted, but Jennings cut that out because it destroys the lie that he was trying to tell. Jennings also attacked the movie JFK for misleading people, to make them think that there was a shot from the front.
This is the key shot. The president going back and to his left. Shot from the front and right. Totally inconsistent with the shot from the depository. Again, back to the left. Back and to the left. Back and to the left. Back and to the left.
So how did Jennings refute this powerful evidence? He didn't even try, really.
Back and to the left in no way indicates where a bullet came from.
One of the leading forensic scientists in America says that the film shows
the very distinct possibility of another shot having been fired in synchronized fashion from the right side, the so-called grassy knoll area.
But we're just supposed to take Jennings' word for it. This sort of take my word for it is standard operating procedure for news people like Jennings.
In all these years, there has not been a single piece of credible evidence to prove a conspiracy.
In fact, 100% of the medical personnel in Dallas who saw the president's wounds described a large exit wound in the back of Kennedy's head about this size and location. Virtually all the witnesses near the grassy knoll say they heard a shot from that direction, and dozens of them chased after the gunman who fired that shot. Congress hired acoustic experts to analyze the sounds of a tape recording of the assassination. Their report was decisive and powerful.
With a probability of 95% or better, there was indeed a shot fired from the grassy knoll.
And Jennings' response to this mountain of proof is,
in all these years, there has not been a single piece of credible evidence to prove a conspiracy.
Now there's a problem here. Jennings was a newsman. If people were to come to see him as a crude liar, his career as a newsman would be finished. Why would he risk everything telling such weak and obvious lies about a murder that took place 40 years ago? The men who killed the president and got away with it 40 years ago were obviously very powerful then. Are some of these killers still alive? Are they still so powerful that they can force a leading newsman like Jennings to lie to protect them? Apparently, the ones who are alive are still very powerful people.
Your name is Big Brother. You've killed all our leaders. I don't even have to do nothing to you. You cause your own country to fall.
Can we help to give John Kennedy a voice? To write his history as he would have written it? I think we owe it to him to try. And certainly he deserves better than the fairy tale put forward by the government and commonly referred to as the single bullet theory. The FBI and the Warren Commission concluded that Oswald, or anyone else shooting with this rifle, could only have fired 3 shots in the 6 seconds during which the shooting took place. Since the first shot missed, that means, except for Kennedy's head wound, all the other wounds to Kennedy and all the wounds to Governor Connally sitting in front of him had to have been caused by a single bullet. This anti-conspiracy theory that there was only one shooter is completely dependent upon this single bullet theory. The anti-conspiracy theory says that this second bullet entered the president's back headed downward at an angle of 17 degrees. Then, while inside the president's body, the bullet reversed directions and moved upward, necessarily piercing and exiting Kennedy's spine, a major bone structure, in order to leave the president's body from the front of his neck. According to the official theory, the bullet then waited 1.6 seconds, presumably in midair, before turning right, and then left. The bullet then headed downward at an angle of now 27 degrees, shattering Connally's 5th rib and exiting from the same side of his chest. The bullet then turned right again and struck Governor Connally in his right wrist, shattering the radius bone. The bullet then exited Connally's wrist, made a dramatic U-turn, and buried itself into Connally's left thigh, from which, according to the official theory, it later fell out and was found in absolutely perfect condition, without a trace of blood on it, in a corridor of Parkland Memorial Hospital, on a stretcher that was not in any way connected with the case.
The bullet was found here in this area, and not on that stretcher. That's the stretcher I took off the elevator. It was there when I came up.
That is some bullet, with even more magical qualities. You see, large bullet fragments were removed from Connally's leg and wrist. These are the fragments from his wrist. But the bullet that was found on the hospital stretcher was completely undamaged and was not missing any fragments. But we're not done with this bullet yet. Do you remember this guy?
At the National Archives in Washington, Dr. Cyril Wecht, former head of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, examined bullets the Warren Commission had test-fired. To find out if a bullet could break so many bones and remain apparently intact, the Commission used a rifle similar to Oswald's.
And then they got these bullets, all 6.5 millimeter. And they test-fired, first into cotton wadding. These 2 bullets were fired into cotton wadding, striking nothing. You will note that these bullets both have a minimal degree of protrusion of the lead at the base. Otherwise, they are intact, which is what you would expect. The next bullet broke 1 rib of a goat carcass. Notice, please, it's widening. This bullet struck one of the 2 large bones that come down from the elbow to the wrist in a human cadaver. They wanted to simulate the fracture of that same bone in Governor Connally. Please note the substantial deformity. This is classical, typical, when a bullet strikes a dense, heavy bone or some other very firm object. Now, I want you to look at the so-called stretcher bullet. This bullet is the actual bullet that the Warren Commission claims broke both John Connally's right 5th rib, destroying 4 inches of that bone, pulverizing it, and which caused a comminuted or extensively fragmented fracture of a dense, heavy bone down near the base of the wrist, and emerged in this condition. You will see that it is near pristine. As a matter of fact, its nose, the cone, the sides of the bullet are completely intact and unscathed. It has only minimal protrusion of the lead core at the base, in the same fashion that the 2 bullets did that had been fired in the test wadding. That's from the impact of the firing mechanism.